Hey y'all, Bill Quirk with BDU. Coming back, we just talked about considerations in selecting your defensive firearm, primarily your carry firearm. And now we've come back to talk about some enhancements and modifications that you might want to make or might not want to make to that firearm now that you've got it. So what we got here, we have three of my carry Glocks that are in front of me here. You'll see certain things, certain common themes as we go and talk about each of them. Before we get into the specifics though, I want to talk about a couple of principles and things to bear in mind. Where most of us are familiar with the expression CYA, that acronym. Now in the context of what we're talking about here, it doesn't mean what you might think it means, the normal meaning of that acronym. For our purposes here, it's going to stand for Can You Articulate? And this is something that I got from one of my mentors, and it's very relevant and poignant when we're talking about a lot of things with combatives. How we train, how we modify our weapons, the mindset that we employ, the ammunition we use, all these different things can come under the CYA, Can You Articulate umbrella. And what we're trying to do here is recognizing that we may at some point have to explain, articulate our choices, why we did what we did, so on and so forth. We want to think about that beforehand and make sure that we do have an explanation and articulation in place when those questions come. So for me, when we're talking about modifications to our firearm, there are some people that will tell you don't ever modify your defensive firearm. You're just opening yourself up to liability. And I understand what they're saying. In my experience, which spans several decades, I have not seen that to be a problem, even in our area. So I kind of fall on the side of I want to maximize the weapon to my needs. I'm a left-handed shooter, so I'll do things to the gun to make it more effective and efficient for me to use as a lefty. When I do make my modifications, I do pay consideration to that CYA principle, and I want to have an articulation in place for anything that I do. So with all of the modifications that I'll make, when we're talking about a red dot, for example, why'd you put that red dot on there? Why'd you put different sights on there even? Well, it's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. This sighting system gives me more control, more precision, makes me more accurate, therefore a safer shooter. Why did you texture the grip? It's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. That gives me more control over the weapon in adverse conditions, if I'm sweaty, if I'm muddy, if I'm bloody, and therefore makes me more precise, more accurate, and therefore a safer shooter. Why'd you modify the trigger? One thing I'll say about the triggers, all three of these have Fowler Industries 0 triggers, and they're stock triggers. All the parts are stock with the exception of the shoe. I just like the increased feel that the flat shoe gives me. But very good question. I'm glad you asked me that. I changed out the triggers to the flat shoe because that gives me more feel, better feedback, more precision, makes me more accurate, and therefore a safer shooter. So you see everything ends with more accurate and therefore a safer shooter. That's something that a reasonable person would go, okay, I understand that. I understand why you did that. And it's all about making me more responsible if I have to employ this weapon system, not something that's frivolous. So you can engrave the gun with certain things. You can engrave the muzzle, smile and wait for flash. I've seen things like that. How do you articulate that? Why'd you do that? Well, I did that because I really don't have a reason. That's not something I would ever do. And not only would I not do it on a gun I'm going to use for real, but also for a ranged toy, some people call them, or a range implement. I wouldn't do it there either because those lines sometimes get crossed. And so just avoid the issue completely. Make sure whatever you do to your defensive firearm has a reason, something that you can articulate in the manner that I just did, where it ends with, it makes me more accurate and therefore a safer shooter, something along those lines. So talking about these guns specifically, in all three cases, the grips, well, in these two, the grips have been textured. I use a company called Great Lakes Custom Works up in Michigan, and they do a fantastic job. This one has not gone yet. It's about to go this week, though, to get the texturing. And like I said, the benefit of the increased texturing, especially down here in Florida where there's a lot of heat and humidity, and you do get sweaty, especially under critical stress type situations, it gives me a better grip. And that's important if we're going to control the weapon effectively. So a couple different patterns. This is the traditional medium, and then this one right here is the hook and loop medium. I like both of them. The owner of the company and I frequently argue about this one because he prefers this one, and I'm very partial to the traditional medium. The slide work on these two they've been enhanced by ATEI, another company up in Michigan. best in the business, can't say enough good things about them, but you see that they've gone through on both of these, done first of all, the enhanced side serrations. Just gives me more control when I'm doing press checks, when I'm clearing malfunctions, when I'm manipulating the gun. They also did the red dot mounting in both cases, and specific pockets milled to this weapon for the specific optic. So I'm going to get a lot of longevity. I can take the optic off to replace the battery in the case of the RMR, put it back on, and I need to confirm my zero after I do that, but I'm going to find that there's very minimal zero shift because of the way that the optic was installed, the precision that was involved in the installation of the optic. Weapon lights, information. Light is information, information is power. I run weapon lights on all my carry guns. That's a personal choice. I have kids, I may have to control my child, so rather than, I do carry a handheld everywhere I go as well. This is my mod light. But I also light the weapon light, so if I'm trying to control my child and only have one hand on the gun, I'm able to still illuminate my target, get that information, make that conscious decision that I do in fact need to shoot the target. Those are the big things here. I do run backup irons on my, even with my red dot, even though these red dots are very robust and have been proven. I've run RMRs for well over a decade. I started running a red dot equipped pistol as a duty weapon back in 2009, and all RMRs for that time. The SRO I've started to use now a little bit, and I do like it. And then this is my newest one, the Aimpoint Acro, the P1 that I've got on this one. Now this particular gun is the one that I just got, purchased it through BDU as a matter of fact. This is a Gen 5 MOS Glock 17, and I've got the Acro mounted here, and I'm using a CH Precision Weapon Systems plate to increase the fit and make sure that's going to stay where it needs to be. This one ultimately will have the grip redone, has the weapon light, does have the trigger in there, all the basic things that I generally will do to my carry guns. And like I said in the first video, I do prefer full-size guns. I am carrying a full-size Glock 17 right now. For the reasons we discussed in the first video, just overall shootability. It's a bit more challenging, not hard, but more challenging for me to conceal, but proper holster selection, proper belt selection are going to go a long way to mitigating those concerns. And the bottom line is I need this. If I need this, it's going to be to fight, to be effective, to save my life. So I need something that I can do those tasks with. So a lot of this, these parts and pieces and whatnot are available through the BDU website. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Until then, stay safe.